I'm Wendell.
And I'm Patrick.
And
this is
Yes,
But Why?
Podcast.
Yeah, I can take care of the kid for like 30 minutes.
Excellent. It's really nice to get all that stuff balanced out some where you're like, okay, and then we can do this, and this is how this is all going to fit in there. So
yeah, it was interesting in the birthing class hearing everybody trying to work out schedules and, you need to make sure and make time in your schedule after work to do housework for her, and it's like, yeah, we're both at home all the time, so yeah, sorry y'all have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as lifestyles go, how has been for you guys? You get the two kids. You're doing theater, and Eric's working on working with his parish. How is that schedule been for you? Sort of creatively, and then sort of like parental. What's that like?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's always. There's different parts of it. It's always changing, kind of dependent on project, right? So we're living in LaGrange right now, and
we love LaGrange.
What?
We love LaGrange.
Yes,
we're a big fan of LaGrange.
Come visit. You really should.
Yeah.
I live in a cuckoo house, and so I have plenty of room for visitors. So you should come do that.
Alrighty.
Fun.
Yeah, it really would be. It's pretty. So when I do something, we just kind of schedule around that particular thing, and then we don't have any weeks that look the same. You know, we're very heavily calendared up human beings, which isn't to say that we're terribly busy. We take a lot of time for rest and fun and everything, but it's not at all predictable in the arts, as you know.
Yeah.
You know, things are based on whatever project you're doing, and then it's even more so as a clergy family, because things they're always changing. He's always getting a call that says, okay, well, the next 3 days are very different now. Yeah. And that's just kind of how it works. So that's how we make it all go.
Did you guys go to LaGrange because of a new parish?
Yes, that's right. We've actually been in LaGrange for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And so
I've not talked to you forever.
Well, it'll be 3 years this summer.
Wow.
And so the things I've done since being in LaGrange have primarily been traveling to do things, you know. So I commuted back and forth to Rice the first fall that I was here.
Oh, wow.
Theater history and improv at Rice, which I had been teaching falls there for a couple falls. And I was teaching 3 days a week. And I would just wake up in the morning before my class, drive into Houston, and then drive back after my classes. And Ori was in preschool for the first time at that time. So it kind of worked schedule-wise. And was very fun, but also exhausting. And then she asked me, okay, are we good to go on the next fall? And I said, actually, let's see if I can recommend my friend Andy, who's already teaching in the art department there, to take that over because he has an improv background and, of course, a PhD. Because I shouldn't commute at this time, because I'm planning on having another baby inside me. And so that was sort of a thing that happened at that time. And I knew that the commute was, pushed me to some personal limits as having a 2-year-old, but would not be possible having Ori and also being full of baby. Yeah. Because I like to throw up when I'm pregnant.
And that can make a commute very difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. It adds a lot of time.
Yeah, they don't really make a lot of travel companions for that.
Yeah.
It's not like a diaper bag that you can just carry with you.
That would be a
you
gross
just kind of
death.
lean over into. That's right.
Yeah, that would be less
So-
than fun.
I can see this product video in my head.
Oh boy.
Working mothers need it.
It's almost like the Swanson feedback dinner.
All right. Yeah. We've moved into super gross. Gross. Good Lord. So what kind of projects are you working on now?
Well, let's see. The two things I just did that were fun was I filled in for Vanessa Gonzalez at the Austin area improv women's retreat that they just did.
Oh, yay.
And yeah, that was tremendously fun. I mean, I didn't see that coming. It was sort of one of those things that I had not been privy to the planning of. And then they said, could you teach at this? It's happening in like 2 weeks. And, I could. But that was a really enjoyable time because the space that they got for that was fantastic.
I know,
And
I
I just
heard.
wasn't sure what the vibe was going to be. And it was very, very chill and fun. And there were people from all different schools in Austin. It was nice to just get to spend time with them. And just before that, they're starting a community theater in LaGrange. Which would be the
Great.
real theater directly in LaGrange. And so I directed their first performance, which was The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, which is a play I've always loved. So that was
Fantastic.
a good time also. So those
That's
are the
so
two things that I've
fun.
done sort of this spring, this early spring. And then we are gearing up to travel most of the summer. So I'm trying to convince myself to not get heavily involved in a new project for the next 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But that is always hard,
Yeah.
You're like, but I have ideas. And they're like, well, you're going to be gone for 3 months, so maybe just be cool.
Yeah, to purposefully sit still.
Yeah.
Perhaps it could just be a writing project that you could bring back to that theater in LaGrange, so that as well as doing their standard plays that they're going to have to pay for, they can also produce things that you write or create or something like that.
That's a fantastic idea. I figure things that I write are more likely to go to Austin or Houston, though.
Sure.
Just because I'm very aware of different audiences.
Yeah,
And I
you're
love
right.
our audience out here.
Yeah.
But most of the things that would come directly out of my brain in that way would probably be most welcome in either the Austin or Houston family context,
I hear
Yeah.
I definitely understand what you're saying. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. In fact, to that point, I wonder, since you've had the experience of all three of those audiences over the past few years, what for you has been either your ideal audience or what have you noticed? Like what for people who are in Austin interested in maybe visiting Houston, or in Houston interested in visiting Austin, what sort of like is the difference between the audience and the vibe of the scene, such that they know how to adjust their work or the efforts that they're putting in to get work or to get the audience to understand them in both places?
Ooh, see, this is a fun and interesting concept because, of course, there's so many potential answers to it. Even if you just go to different theaters in Austin, you feel that there are different audiences throughout Austin,
Indeed.
And Houston grows so quickly that that's really always an evolving scene as well. But I would say Austin can be specialized in all of the best ways, which is that you can be in a place where there's already a great depth of understanding of a potential genre of improv, or a lot of people have already thought a lot about what they want their specific comedy to sound like at this venue, or people who have a really solid sense of this is the style, this is the school, this is the perspective that I'm coming at it from. And that's great because that means that for a Houston audience, a lot of times they're seeing somebody who's pretty far down a pathway of specialization, and that's always invigorating because you know that you're dealing with an expert and some people who are doing something that's got a very definitive voice to it, and that's very exciting for a Houston audience to get to see that sort of thing. But a Houston audience most of the time also is just rabid and enthusiastic and delighted by most things. It's a very, very supportive audience there because there's not nearly the same comedy to person ratio. So you get a lot more people in your audience who are like, oh man, I can't believe I found this thing. Or I can't believe there's not more of this thing already here.
Well,
this is exciting and I love it. And it's also usually a fairly diverse audience, which is great. It doesn't have the same Austin context in that I would invite people in for Trail Comedy Fest, and there would be, especially with stand-ups, a lot of material that was really geared towards. So as you know, we're all a bunch of super liberal hipsters, and that's the whole context we exist in, and can't it become kind of incestuous? Ha ha. And I would see that I was laughing at these jokes, but a lot of our audience was just lost in the weeds in terms of why this was being proffered up. You know, because Houston's not Austin or Portland or San Francisco. It's a different kind of place where people come in contact with a lot of different stuff all the time, even if they themselves are hipsters, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's one way that that's a different audience for Austin comedy. And then in terms of an Austin audience for Houston comedy, back around Christmas time, I got to perform, was it this Christmas? No. Maybe it was the previous Christmas. Anyway, at some Christmas time that happened in life, I was performing after moving to LaGrange with Aaron's show, Magical Lying Hour, which he brought in from Houston, and he had booked it at Hideout and asked if I wanted to be in it because I was familiar with the show from Houston. And that was a really wonderful experience because Austin has seen various iterations of concept before, and his concept is it's a pretty tightly run, half scripted, half improv show that works well and is fun, and he picks a lot of dramatic stuff and not necessarily comedic stuff. But that's not a whole new concept to the Austin audience, you know, the same way that it isn't to a Chicago audience or something. But I find that in Austin, people are still excited to see somebody doing things, especially if they're doing them well. And from inside the Austin scene, it often feels like, oh, you can't do that, that's been done before. But outside the Austin scene, coming in, people are still like, oh man, I really liked how you did that, or that was really fun, or that had your voice to it. And so I think that that's a nice thing about the Austin audience for out-of-towners, is that the enthusiasm and fresh perspective of people from other places often shines and is embraced. That's nice.
Well, and that, for me, is someone who visited Austin and moved to Austin from Houston. I'm originally a Houstonian and, have lived in different parts of the country. And even, I remember when T&M first started trying to branch out and kind of tried stepping into the Houston scene. And Amy was like, it's really weird. It's like people aren't used to this. I'm like, well, they're not. Houston is very there. It's not that there's not a comedy scene. It's that there's a stand-up comedy scene. And that's what has always existed there. You know, Houston gave birth to a lot of good comedy that came out of there. But it was much